5 here. And 575.
What happened? Where are they taking my mommy? Why did that man's car just hit us?
If you or someone you know has been the victim of a drunk driver, call us. We're MADD. We're Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Call 1-800-633-MADD. That's 1-800-633-6233.
Welcome to For the Record. On this show, we talk about events and issues of interest to our local people. Today I have with me Janet Locke. Janet is president of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, the Metrowest chapter. And Janet, perhaps we can lead right into it. Maybe you can tell me, how did something like Mothers Against Drunk Driving get started? Obviously, there had to have been a need for it.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for the invitation. It's certainly a pleasure to be here. Mothers Against Drunk Driving was developed in 1980 by a young person, a young mother in California. Her 12-year-old daughter was killed by a repeat offender drunk driver. As a result of his lenient sentence, when he was released, he went out and did it again. This one-woman organization has branched out and generated to over 1 million people strong. I know in Massachusetts alone there are 7 chapters of MADD, and we all work together with our state, coordinating and issuing the many areas that we can be used in MADD alone, in Massachusetts.
Now, I know it's called Mothers Against Drunk Driving, but I'm sure that you have a number of people that are part of your chapter.
Oh, yes. Well, many people say, how come there's not such a thing as FADD, Fathers Against Drunk Driving? And, you know, you run into the whole scenario. MADD is not a female organization. We're not an organization of victims. We're not an organization of teetotalers. What we do is we are all together addressing the issues of keeping our roads safe for the sober driver, free from drunk drivers. There are many men that do belong to our organization. There are many people, concerned citizens, who are members of our organization. And there's certainly an awful lot to be said about the concerned citizen not wanting this or to become victim by a drunk driver.
Well, you've mentioned the drunk drivers on the road. Do you have any kind of way that you can spot a drunk driver? If I'm driving along a highway, what would some of the things be that might tip me off?
There are many lists of, you know, how somebody would determine if someone's drunk. I would be willing to bet that we've all seen a drunk driver, and our first instance is to get out of the way. But what I would like to add is anyone available, in lieu of all of the car phones, people are, concerned citizens are doing their part in calling into the police the description, license plate number, the location of the car, and that the police is able to apprehend somebody with an anonymous tip to get our roads safe. That's done very successfully in many of our communities. And I've received an awful lot of information from the police just identical to what I just said. Generally in any town or city budget, you can't afford to have a policeman sit there and monitor traffic, although there are instances where something like this happens. But it's the concerned citizen that has an awful lot to be said in how they're combating themselves. You know, they're keeping our roads safe.
Well, the police have a new awareness of all of this. And I remember not too long ago, somebody had been stopped by the police, then let go, and did have an accident, and I guess they did hold the police liable for not having stopped that person in the first place. Wasn't too long ago here in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
So,
are you talking about a case in Ware?
Yes, I guess it was Ware.
Yeah, the police did apprehend a drunk driver, and they chose to let him go. I can't comment or stipulate, but things have happened even closer to our community where the police did not even take a person into protective custody, and the person continued, the drunk driver, the alleged, continued and did create devastating results in that they did kill people along their way. Certainly I don't like to waste too much attention other than the fact that there is a focus now. All these times, selectmen, or I'm just giving you alleged information, selectmen or police will not arrest another brother officer. I can honestly say in lieu of something like this happening, you know, I can't back up a story that someone tells me saying that a police will not arrest a police or a politician, or, you know, you're hearing more and more of politicians and their wives and family who are getting apprehended and arrested for drunk driving.
Yes, no, the awareness is heightened, and it is there, and I think it has, frankly, caused a lot fewer accidents than we might have had in the past. Now, maybe you can take us a little bit through what happens when somebody is picked up for drunk driving. Then we have to end up going through the court system and breathalyzer test.
Well, what happens is, first of all, there's a probable cause. The reason why somebody is apprehended, the reason why somebody is pulled over. At that point, the police does give this person field sobriety tests. That's basically heel to toe, reciting the alphabet, counting on one foot, and touching your finger to your nose. And that's a good determination as to someone's reflexes or whether continued testing should be continued. Upon the test results, that the police makes the determination, and generally this is in conjunction with an odor of alcohol, slurry speech, glassy eyes, and that's also an indication. The person is brought to the station where he's given a choice to take a breathalyzer or not. Many people are very uncomfortable with the breathalyzer. I'm not afraid to tell you that Massachusetts leads the nation in breathalyzer refusals. It seems to be that the device is so important to work in conjunction with making a conviction of a drunk driving arrest. It's also very important where there is victims, injuries, fatalities involved. The breathalyzer is only a device used to measure the degree of impairment. It has already been established that some degree of impairment exists between the probable cause and the field sobriety. So many people, of course, they refuse the breathalyzer, feeling that, they're really not drunk or in a denial or any other circumstance.
To plead self-incrimination.
And versus it's really tough, although it's done quite often, that the police are able to have the conviction sent by the judge that this person was drunk or under the influence. And the breathalyzer is the device used to measure the degree. I know in the Commonwealth, if you measure a .10 or better, that's the blood alcohol concentration, you're considered drunk. I believe California now just passed what's called a .08 law, and you can see where the degree of impairment, I know in Europe and many other countries, it's a .05. Many doctors and alcohol facilitators will blatantly tell you that one drink will affect the degree of driving or the degree of impairment, and that will affect your reflexes. So even the .10 is quite vast, and I would very strongly or very leniently say that you or I couldn't even probably get to a measure. I am not a high-tolerance drinker, although I'm not against alcohol. But, I've done an awful lot of work in that people were monitored drinking, not necessarily driving, but to prove the breathalyzer as the test device. And people that blatantly said before they took their breath that, they couldn't even find their keys, they couldn't get themselves behind a wheel, and they would blow a .07 or a .05. Therefore, an arrest cannot be made for drunk driving because it's not over the legal limit of .10.
So everybody's tolerance, of course, is different.
Oh, yes.
I guess we know
you
that.
do have high-tolerance drinkers.
And it depends on whether you have had a good dinner or not.
Yeah, but that's not as major, drinking on an empty stomach, of course. Time is the only solution to having your body rid of alcohol. It has to go through the whole oxidizing and through your liver, and it has to go through your whole system. And roughly, if you average one drink an hour, you're pretty safe, and having it with dinner or food to absorb the alcohol. It's not really the absorption in as much as it's your body is functioning and your body is actively oxidizing or preparing the alcohol to rid your body.
Well, since we do have these sometimes roadblocks and people have been stopped and brought in, it sort of amazes me a little bit that we can have cases like we've had recently where somebody has had 10 to 12. I don't know whether they were actual convictions, but they certainly had been brought in for drunk driving, and yet there they are again out on the road. What are the kinds of things we can do to stop that sort of thing from happening?
Well, first of all, there's only about 400 questions that I could ask or offer to you in a situation like that. If it's alleged that somebody was arrested 11 times for drunk driving, of course there should not be a license in his wallet. License revocation is done quite often in Massachusetts, and the Commonwealth is going one step further in that we're finding more people are getting a second conviction of drunk driving without a license. So the Commonwealth has taken the initiative now of removing plates from cars. You cannot tell driving down the street who has a license or not. Licenses are very important to people, and hopefully they wouldn't get caught again or put themselves in a situation where they are not sober driving. But it certainly does happen. Generally, the person who is caught drunk driving and convicted, it's not necessarily the first time they've ever experienced with alcohol in their vehicle.
Sure, they may have been lucky up until...
Absolutely, and they would very well say that their luck ran out and that they were caught. And we're coming from another angle saying that you're quite fortunate that you were caught, and now that you become a first offender, you're welcome to attend the program to learn a little bit about yourself and a little bit about alcohol. And, you know, that's according to the law. It's very, very expensive when somebody is convicted of drunk driving. I've heard information of $3,000, and now I've heard information from AAA of $4,000, along with a license revocation, the inconvenience, and attending 40 hours of alcohol education. So the Massachusetts laws are pretty good, excuse me, in that people are getting the education when they are convicted, but there are an awful lot of cases where the conviction, it's impossible to convict somebody without the help of a breathalyzer or somebody achieving an attorney who, you know, and then the judge making the decision.
Well, you mentioned some of the laws, and Massachusetts, I guess, is tightening up on some of the penalties for drunk driving. Now, there are quite a few bills right now in the legislature. As you said, they had been there last year, and they are now being refiled again for this year. Do you have a feel for what some of those bills might involve?
Well, there are an awful lot of bills. I initially want to talk to you about the leaving the scene. This is something that it's a real tough situation. The high-tolerance drinker is well aware of the fact that should they strike somebody or an object, it's easier to leave the scene and face up to it 24 or 48 hours later when they're sober. The alcohol, the drunk driving conviction does carry on a homicide, 1 year minimum mandatory, 10-year license revocation, versus our leaving the scene as they are right now is possibly 30-day conviction and no revocation. And, you know, it's quite lucrative. So we're finding more and more that the person that continues to drink and drive is well aware of the fact that it is easier for him to take his chances, leave someone to bleed to death, somebody seriously injured, and to turn themselves in and to be hit with a leaving the scene. And it's real tough. It's very difficult, and that's happening more often than not. There are an awful lot of people who have been, families that have been victimized that belong to MADD, and their cases will never be solved. Their cases will always be open, but it's difficult because I've spoken to an awful lot of these victims, and the mom will say, you know, it could be the guy standing beside me in the grocery line, and, you know, it's pretty scary. Even when justice is or isn't served, when the person is apprehended, the person responsible for the felony, it's quite difficult for the family now knowing that it could be anyone. You know, generally, you know, when you do an awful lot, I've worked an awful lot with within AA and attending meetings just for me to find out exactly what's going on. And generally the person would get up and say that they got up the following day and went out to their car and they noticed another box or another bump in their fender and they must have hit a mailbox or a tree. And the irony of that is this person could have struck our child.
Yes.
You know, so this person really does not know.
Well, attitudes have shifted considerably because it seems to me, I can remember when if you killed somebody and you were drunk, then you were not held as culpable as you were if you hit somebody and you were stone sober. There really wasn't any such thing as vehicular homicide. So it's good to see, you know, that the public opinion now has shifted to the fact that you really have a responsibility when you're behind the wheel of a car not to make it a lethal weapon.
Well, you're talking about a negligent or a non-negligent crime as well. And I know several times you mentioned the word accident, and that really is not in a vocabulary when you're speaking about drunk driving because it's not an accident. I've not heard of an alcohol-related accidental rape, accidental child molestation, so there really is no such thing as an alcohol-related drunk driving accident. An accident is something beyond your control that happens, and drunk driving or stepping behind the wheel when you shouldn't is certainly within someone's control. I know the media very blatantly and quite continually talks about drunk driving accident. And when you think about it, there is no such thing as a drunk driving accident.
Yes, because this has been brought about by a person's own actions.
Well, it's not by accident that someone chose to get drunk. It's not by accident that someone chose to put themselves behind a wheel. Most likely, more often than not, against the wishes of anyone around him. You know, we've always been, we've all been in situations where we've said, you know, don't drive, I'm going to take your keys, stay here. And generally it's the person that says, I'm fine, I've done this all my life, I've never had a problem, I'll drive slow, there's no other cars on the road, but that's just a 100% setup of a
Sure, if anything,
some
of them have been insulted that you would take their keys away from them.
Well, see, they're incapable of making...
them, to drive. What do you think about the fact that now bartenders or the host of a party can even be held responsible if you get drunk at a person's home or get drunk at the bar? And then go out and drive.
Well,
has this helped? Has this done anything that we wanted to do?
Absolutely. You know, and I've heard from bartenders saying, you know, how should I be responsible if this guy, you know, he sat here with me. I'm always saying guy, but generally the female population is also very much involved. If this person is sitting at my bar, they only had 2 beers and then they went out and killed someone, when it was obvious that this person had been drinking prior to the situation. Bartenders now are getting quite educated. In fact, there are tips programs, how to effectively shut someone off and still retain your tip. But it's the public awareness of that, too, in that, you know, there is some deal of accountability that has to substantiate the alcohol service. I'm going to throw a question at you, if you don't mind. We get our hair done by somebody who's registered and certified. We get our house bought or sold by somebody who's registered or certified. We buy medicinal from a druggist who's registered and certified. Now, alcohol is a legal drug. Why?
Yes, it is.
Why can't we confront the situation or address the situation where alcohol is being bought and sold very readily by somebody who is at least educated in who to serve or who not to serve? We do have 18-year-olds who are available to serve alcohol, although they are not available to drink, and that really doesn't make too much sense to me, other than, you know, that kind of gets classified into the Massachusetts job program, you know, and stuff like that. But the seriousness of alcohol, you know, our alcohol advertising is certainly another step in that. Alcohol advertising is appealing. You know, you always get the best babe, the best car, the best fish, and home run and touchdown, you know, with a whatever in your hand. And, you know, the advent of Spuds MacKenzie definitely lends itself to somebody entertaining for our children. You know, everybody knows who Spuds MacKenzie is, and they don't see the underlying what they're trying to do. They're trying to sell a product. I feel like I'm walking a fine line now because I am not against the issues of alcohol, but I've seen what alcohol has done to so many families and the devastating effects. And the irresponsibility and the negligence.
Well, I think part of it has been the social acceptance of alcohol. To me, alcohol and nicotine are both drugs, and they should be dispensed as drugs. So I'm going to say I agree with you. Our drinking age is now 21, if I recall. We dropped it down to 18 for a while, and then brought it back up again. So apparently that experiment didn't work.
Well, it worked to the advantage, or to the... I know MADD was very instrumental in the Commonwealth in passing the drinking age back to 21.
To bring it back up again.
I know we mentioned SAD. We were talking briefly before, Students Against Driving Drunk in our high schools. And MADD works wonderfully with that organization. I love SAD because they address specifics, the peer pressure, working with the inexperienced drinker and the inexperienced driver. And I will go one step further to say that our kids who have SAD programs or another alcohol or substance abuse programs in their schools are so educated that I'm finding the downfall to be now the parents who are advising their kid just have a cup of black coffee and drive yourself home, and you know, this type of thing. Or a parent who is approaching me saying my child's graduating from high school and I've got 4 kegs of beer set up and the whole class is coming to my house, but I'm taking all the keys. And that kind of gets, and they follow up by saying, and you can't tell me what to do in my house. And you're right. I don't want anyone to tell me what I can do in my own house. But, and I realize that, you know, you are taking keys, but who's going to dispense the keys? And as long as you are aware that you are responsible for each and every person who is at your house and who you are contributing alcohol to a minor to, as long as you are aware of that. And if you want to take the responsibility, it makes no sense to me, but I can't come across a situation like that. But it's the awareness there of what is going on. It is a law for a minor to not drink. There is reasons for the law, you know, the making the decision or becoming mature. But, you know, these are, I'm not saying that it's only over 21 who kill or drink and drive, or under 21. The statistics, drunk driving is the #1 killer of our children. And, you know, we put an awful lot of priority on a situation or a statement like that. Our children are our future, and, you know, these are the people that will be taking over real quick. Quicker than you and I probably like to think. But, you know, it's the education, and there's an awful lot to be said, the public awareness. I'm just going to talk about the red ribbons that hit so many communities. I know your community did.
We do.
The Red Ribbon Campaign, this is the 4th year nationally that MADD has sponsored a Red Ribbon Campaign. I can say our local chapter, now our chapter covers the area between 128 and 495, and we do an awful lot of work in Norfolk County, as well as some Worcester and Middlesex County. Our chapter bought 150,000 pre-cut 24-inch red ribbons. And without a calculator, I'm very happy to tell you that is 57 miles of red ribbons. And we just merely ask people to tie a red ribbon on their car. I've received an awful lot of help and support from SAD in our schools, as well as community involvement. Many businesses supported in that they had red ribbons available for their customers and their clients and whatnot. The mental awareness of asking people to tie one on, or let's change the meaning
of tie one on. Sure.
This is a holiday season. If you decorate your house, why not decorate your car? And just the public awareness and the public commitment that you will not drink and drive. And also the underlining fact that even if you've not been drinking and driving, you share the same roads.
Yes.
And it's something very important. And I saw all kinds of crazy red ribbons tied in many different areas on their car, but the support that we received was just overwhelming. And I really have to thank so many people for helping us in carrying our message. And next year we'll be back and bigger than ever, you know, with that one campaign.
I was just going to mention that. I noticed you have quite a number of things over here that spread the message around. And maybe you'd like to show us some of them. The obvious ones, of course, are the
our new books that we
and the books, yes.
Well, I kind of have a fondness for this one. It's a little book developed. It's 2 little teddy bears. And the little teddy bear is saying, "What is a drunk driver, Mom?" And inside is a coloring area and discussions that a parent would talk about their child with. And it's very important. I've done some work in our elementary schools. I spoke to a 1st grade class, and they wanted to talk about the egg frying in the frying pan.
Oh, the scrambled brains.
And this is what cocaine does to your brain. And it was quite interesting to see our kids are a lot smarter than I think we even feel they are.
I think they're a lot more sophisticated at an earlier age than we were. And I'm not sure things like television bring it up. I noticed you also had a bilingual book over here, too.
Oh, yes.
You had one in Spanish.
We've got it in English and Spanish. Generally, there's...
Oh, okay. Friends save their friends' lives, I guess.
Keeping... Well, this one says, friends keep friends
alive.
Well, that's pretty close.
Yes.
But these are, you know, I would like to go to every community and bring these. It's something that our chapter has purchased as a result of our telemarketing campaign, and that we do have an awful lot of people donating monies to MADD, and we just want to turn this money around and put it back into the community. And something like this is the best way.
Now, if somebody wanted to contribute to you, to be able to help you do some of these things, what would they do? Would they call you? Who would they get in touch
let me
with?
tell you exactly a little bit more about MADD. MADD is a non-profit organization, and we are all volunteers. I am the chapter president and the chapter organizer. Our chapter and any MADD chapter is governed by the board of directors, first and second vice president, secretary, treasurer. We hold monthly meetings and that we discuss. We've got public campaigns throughout the year. We update people on the legislation or new victims, the support that is given to the victims, what's happening in our courts, and publicly, our public awareness messages. Well, I'm not going to refuse a donation. Membership is something different as well. For a single person, it's a $20 a year membership fee. For a family, it's $40. And this money is just turned around. Our Red Ribbon campaign, we offered it free to everybody, but I know our chapter spent in excess of $4,000.
Is that right?
Preparing the ribbon.
The ribbons,
in addition to that, we had the easel boards and posters, and you know, we are a nonprofit, but not everything that we have available to give was given to us free.
Sure,
These
so
coloring
there's gotta be some
books
kind of
and
support
bumper
for it.
stickers and all this, of course, our
Yes,
chapter has paid for.
Okay, this statistic interested me over here. This bumper sticker about drunk drivers kill 70 people a day. Are we talking across the country?
Yeah, nationwide. In fact, I was in a national conference in October, and the biggest message that came out of the conference was, we've got to change those bumper stickers in that the current rate is 65. And you stop and think, there's 5 people a day, that's 5 families are spared.
Yes.
There's an awful lot to be said about that. In addition to that statistic coming down, you've got to also figure all the new drivers that are on our road and all the other
This
people.
is true.
So, you know, with the influx of
congested,
more motor vehicles on our roads, and with a statistic like that coming down, even to 5 people less on an average, certainly is something, an awful lot to be said about the public awareness and the responsibility that people are taking.
Now, this is your famous logo over here on the Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
It's our
And
cocktail
again, yeah, the cocktail glass and the key, with, of course, the international forbidden or no sign on it. This must have been designed by the original chapter somewhere along the line.
Well, originally it was, I believe, the front of a vehicle with a cocktail glass, and in the interim, that is our current logo that we use on all our information that we have here. These bumper stickers I kind of held aside because these are used by people who have been victimized by drunk drivers. I know I do have one of these bumper stickers on my vehicle. People have stopped me and after they've read the bumper sticker and said, is that true? And unfortunately, I can't understand why anybody would have a sticker on their car, but, you know, killed my best friend, killed my grandchild, killed my son, killed my daughter, killed my sister, killed someone I love, injured someone I love.
Or killed someone I love.
And it's pretty important, and it's certainly not mandated by people who have been victimized by a drunk driver, but many people are putting them on their cars just because once you've been victimized by a drunk driver, it's, you know, they've changed your life, the rest of your life. It'll never be the same.
This is true. Nothing is more unnatural, to my way of thinking, than to lose a child.
Right. It's very unnatural for a parent.
So you did mention that you had support for the victims of drunk drivers.
Oh, first and foremost is the victim support. I have been to court many times with victim families of drunk driving, bodily injuries, and just helping them through the process of not only themselves, but also addressing our whole criminal justice system and how it acts. And like it was the first time I had ever been in court in my life, and that type of information that I needed and the assistance that I received from MADD.
Okay. Not only do you have to suffer through someone being killed, but you also can suffer with somebody being paralyzed for life, for instance.
Absolutely.
Which also has to be just absolutely devastating on a family, too. How do you find the courts are treating some of these drunk drivers now? Have they at least been giving them sentences?
All courts are different. All judges are different.
On the judge.
Every case is really different. It's really determined on the information, what's happened, the available information. So I can't, as a rule, I've got to say that, judges are sentencing according to the laws. But there are cases, too, that are quite unfortunate.
I guess one of the arguments that has never really held much water for me is when somebody says, oh, he has to have his license because he has a family to support. And I guess my feeling is, but that was his responsibility to think of the fact that he had a family to support and therefore could not afford to lose his license.
Well, you can't compare having a license versus causing devastation in your own family or somebody else's family. Having a car, having a license is a privilege. And once you abuse that privilege, you've got to pay the price.
Yes.
You know, it's pretty easy. And that way, you'll recognize the importance of a license.
Do you want to give us your phone number, Janet, where somebody can call?
Our office is on Route 9 in Southborough. Our telephone number is, of course, 508-624-6233. That spells MADD, 508-624-MADD. Our office is beginning to become manned a little more often. I know I am in there an awful lot. But we are a group of volunteers, and we try to cover and be in as many areas as we can possibly be. And, we would appreciate anyone's support just in volunteering, because there are many areas that we could certainly use additional help.
And certainly parental example could start things off on the right foot
Well,
for
the
a lot of our
education right off the
youngsters,
bat.
to it. I noticed that you do have some things over here like the hat, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and of course your mug. But these things are good because you see when you pick something up like this, like a keychain, what a good idea to have this for everybody's set of car keys to remind them when they pick it up just how much they do have in their hands.
Well, any of these definitely incites a conversation. People will ask, are you a member, or
Yes.
that type of stuff. So, anyone is proud to be a member of our organization. I'm not afraid to say that, and to receive the information that we send out.
Okay. Well, Janet, I certainly want to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you
We've
very
learned a
much.
lot. I hope that those of us listening will do what we can to help Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I can't think of an organization that, frankly, could use more help. And certainly, we all know the devastating effects when a drunk driver gets on the road. I'm Mary Jane Hillery, and everything you've heard today is for the record.
In a case, and somewhere else in England is the body. I hope sooner or later it comes together. We feel he belongs to us because he was Simon of Sudbury.